Hello, my name is Chuck Wolf. Over the years, I've worked in many different roles, including leading my own leadership consulting company since 1994. I've worked for and with some of the best companies and universities in the world, and have had the opportunity to work with government officials, military organizations, and public and private schools. I'm a leading expert and pioneer in emotional intelligence. Since 2009, I've been a volunteer hosting a radio show I created called The Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. I really enjoy making a difference in people's lives. The show is on award-winning community radio station, WPKN in Bridgeport, Connecticut. In recent years, Simsbury Community Television has been sharing my shows on their station and on YouTube. My sincere hope is that everyone who watches regularly will learn how to use the emotion roadmap in their own lives by listening to people who call in to get help with challenges at work, home, and in communities. To learn more, go to www.emotionroadmap.com. If you have a comment or question, email me at cjwolf@cjwolf.com. Thank you and enjoy the show. Hi, this is Chuck Wolf. You're listening to WPKN 89.5 FM. And who knew that you could change your car radio and put it on 89.5 FM and it would start right up for you. That was interesting. It's nice to be back with you. Again, this is Chuck Wolf. You're listening to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. Take the wheel and control how you feel. Well, how are you feeling today? I hope you're feeling upbeat. There's a lot of things that are out there that could make you feel pretty good, and certainly a number of things happening in our world today that are depressing. And so I'll try and talk a little bit about a number of different things, and also try to address this whole idea that you can control to some degree how you feel. And you also can control the narrative about how your feelings are making you think and behave. So you can control how you feel. That's one possibility when you're looking to change feelings in case the feelings you have are not helpful for what you're trying to get done. You can also change the narrative and change what you think about how you're feeling, because often your feelings drive your thoughts, but you can influence the narrative by being consciously in tune with how you are feeling, being very self-aware. And you can also feel something that drives a certain kind of thinking and then drives a certain kind of behavior, and you can actually just also change behaviors. So when you're looking at the emotion roadmap concept of taking the wheel and controlling how you feel, the intent is to help you understand that sometimes feelings aren't helpful. They're always informative. I think it's always important to remember that our feelings are part of our evolutionary systems that help us survive. Our feelings are designed to protect us. But as I was counseling someone recently about certain things that are potentially informing them, trying to protect them, trying to help them, it isn't necessarily something that is useful in this context. For instance, if you've had a really bad experience, on a boat, and you're worried about being on a boat, and you're worried about going on a ship to a destination, possibly a cruise, maybe it's just a ferry, maybe just a motorboat, maybe it's a fishing boat. But because you've had some bad experience, maybe way back when you were a kid, the opportunity to go on this particular boat ride is scaring you to death because the feelings you had when you were a kid, maybe you were in a sailboat and you were trying to learn to sail and you tipped over and you were really, really frightened by the whole experience. But anything to do with water and boats is something that you just held on to all these years as an adult. And so that irrational fear, I'm saying, suggests that maybe you shouldn't take that boat ride because you're in danger. You're placing yourself in danger. And again, our feelings are an evolutionary system designed to protect us. But what if that fear, based on what happened to us as a young child, is holding us back from important engagements? Maybe there's a very important organizational meeting on a boat. Maybe there's a chance to meet your potential in-laws who own a boat and they want to take you out fishing or something, and you're really terrified. What do you do? How do you change that feeling? Well, you may not be able to change the feeling right away, You can certainly tinker with the narrative. You can say to yourself, look, I recognize that my feelings are trying to be helpful in terms of them being protective. That's what they're designed to do. But my one-time experience as a young kid in a sailboat has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm about to engage in this next weekend or this next month. And I need to let go of that fear. Now, if I can't totally change the feeling, at least I can change the narrative and explain to myself, I recognize the fear, I recognize where it came from, but I want to move past it in order to have this meeting, to meet these people, to do whatever it is I want to do that involves being in a boat in the water or a ship in the water. Anyway, the whole concept is designed in this show to help you understand how feelings impact your thoughts, impact your behaviors. And if you've listened to the show regularly, and if you're a regular listener, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, I'm Chuck Wolf, and this show is the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. It's on the first and second Wednesdays of each month from 12 to 1 p.m. on WPKN as part of this community strip. So as you are thinking about what you can gain from having to tune into the show, those of you who are regular listeners know that I often get phone calls from people who are interested in trying to make some difference, some meaningful change in something happening in their life, and they're stuck. And when smart people, good critical thinkers, those are the people that listen to WPKN, of course, when they're stuck, they're often stuck because something emotional is happening inside them. Stop and ask yourself right now, do you have something happening in your life where you are emotionally stuck somehow? You may just not think of it as emotionally stuck. You're just stuck. And then ask, are there some emotions tied up in this? Does it have something to do with how I'm feeling about what's happening? Or if you're worried about dealing with another person or a group of people, and you're worried about how they might feel, is that what's holding you back from making a decision? Is that what's causing you to be stuck? Because often it is. Often it's something to do emotionally. We're really good, often, most of us anyway, at solving problems. Some of us are really excellent critical thinkers, which takes us to another level of problem solving. Not just solving a problem initially, but also looking at the root cause of the problem and trying to address root causes so that same problem doesn't happen in the same way again. So as we think about who are we, what's going on in our lives, is there something that we might learn here at this show that's going to help us to be better at internally managing our own emotions and externally influencing the emotions of others? Is there something we might say or do? I ask myself all the time, whenever I've got something that's really controversial to talk about with somebody or even on the radio show, I ask myself, so how would this come across? Would this enlist a whole bunch of people to call up and say something, really out there on the extremes that's going to derail the whole show? Or is this something that's going to be helpful to a lot of people that might make a meaningful difference and help them to have a better day, a better week, a better month? And we're coming up on the new year, a better new year. Is there something that I might say that might help with that? So most of the time I opt to take the position that, hey, I've got a show that's on the air a couple hours a month, and I've got an opportunity to say something to all of you who are listening, and welcome to any new listeners that might be here. I want to say thank you for tuning in to WPKN, and also thank you for listening to my show. I hope that you find the show engaging, informative, and most importantly, helpful. So for those of you that are regular listeners and might have something happening right now, and I've noticed that holidays often bring out a lot of emotionally challenging scenarios for people to deal with. And so if you got something coming up that you're kind of concerned about, family, friends, business, and you have some question about how to move forward, and you're feeling stuck, uncertain, doubtful, and you'd like some help, then I introduce this concept I call an emotion roadmap, which is simply a way of taking and harnessing the world of emotional intelligence, the science of emotional intelligence, and making it useful. Taking it out of the journal articles, the books written about it, and bringing to life for you examples of how you can use this idea of being more emotionally intelligent to benefit you in certain circumstances, but also people that you care about, people that you may love, people that you are working to develop, that work for you in your organizations, that you want to help grow, people alongside you. Even you might manage upward and help the people that are your leaders to be smarter about how they manage their emotions and their emotional relationships with others. If you learn this concept, I call an emotion roadmap. So let me spend a minute or two talking about the emotion roadmap, then I'll invite you to call in if you've got something you'd like to chat about. If not, I always bring a few topics with me to chat about, and I'll be happy to share those with you if I don't immediately get phone calls. So here's what I'd like to say to you about the emotion roadmap. It starts with this idea that, as I mentioned, people often get stuck around challenging situations in their lives where they feel as though something is complicating their ability to problem solve, to make a choice, to make a decision, to move forward. And often what's complicating those situations, whether they're at work, at home, in your communities, in the nation, internationally, whatever it is that you're involved in, that you're trying to resolve and deal with effectively, if you're being held back and you're uncertain how to proceed, at least consider the possibility that there's something to do with emotions that's complicating the circumstance for you. And so I ask you to describe your situation to me briefly, what you might call it in a workplace, an executive summary. I don't want a whole book about, when you were born to this point and how all things have led to this particular point. I only have an hour show, so I have to do this in a very succinct way. So I ask you to tell me in a couple of minutes what's going on. And then I ask, okay, here's the roadmap itself. How are you feeling about what's going on? If there's someone else that's key in your circumstance or situation, how is he or she or they feeling? And then I ask, if the feelings you have are helpful, what other questions do you have? But if they're not helpful, what do you think might be more ideal to feel? So the first question is, what's going on? The second question is, how are you feeling about it? And anybody else that's key, how is he or she or they feeling? And then the next question is, what would be more ideal to feel? And I like to use this example because it's easy to understand. Lots of us get anxious from time to time and feel like we want to be calm in certain circumstances or settings, and we're feeling anxious. And so how do we get from anxious to calm? Or maybe we're in sales mode or influence mode, and we're trying to sell somebody or influence somebody to do something that maybe they're not thinking they want to do. So when we're trying to do that, then we're also thinking about how do we influence, how do we want the other person to feel about what we're saying to them so that they feel supportive and engaged in doing what we think is in their best interest. Hopefully we're trying to do something in their best interest and not trying to manipulate them. So if we're trying to do something that's in your own best interest, my best interest, the other person's best interest, what do you want each person that's key to feel? And if it's different than what you are feeling, the concept of an emotion roadmap is, how do you get from anxious to calm or anxious to confident? How do you do that? And then I explore with you. The next question was, how might you get from anxious to confident, say? And then I'd like to ask, because this is always really helpful if it's true, I'd like to ask you, have you ever had a circumstance in your life where the feelings you have were the same? Circumstances might be totally different. But in the past, somewhere in your life, you were very anxious, felt like you couldn't possibly feel confident in what was coming, and yet you felt you needed to, and you actually turned it around. You figured out how to do it. Because if I can get you in touch with your own personal experience and help you recall a time when you were feeling somewhat anxious and felt the need to be confident, and you turned it around, then I ask, well, the circumstance may be totally different than what you're dealing with today. Is there anything that might be useful here for you to consider that you might do now to help you to feel less anxious today with what's going on? I realize everything about the situation is quite different, but the feelings were similar or the same. And often I've found people are actually able to recall something along the lines of what I'm asking them to think about. And in recalling it, they all of a sudden feel uplifted. their feelings, actually, you can hear it in their voices, at least I can when I'm talking to them on the phone or in person. And I can see it in their faces if I'm with them, because all of a sudden they're feeling hopeful instead of hopeless. Once they recognize that they've actually been able to turn around an emotional situation, the emotions internally inside of them, and turn them into something better and more ideal, and they've had that past experience, they now believe it's possible, where before, when they first called in, they might not. And then I listen to them talk to me about what that experience was, not the whole experience, but just how they might have gotten to feeling confident from the anxiousness that they felt to start. And I suggest, okay, how might that help here? And we talk about that together. And I help them build on their plan. It's not my plan. It's their plan. It's what they've done before with some modification based on the situation being different. But again, it starts from the foundation of, you've already done this. So you can feel confident that you can do this. And I can help you with it. And doing that and trying to help that, we've come up with a number of strategies. And then the last question is, okay, of all the things we've talked about just now to help you to feel differently, feel better, be more confident in your ability to change from anxious to confident, if we can create that for you, what needs to happen next? Which strategy are you really, and this is key, are you really able to do? Of the things we talked about, what are you really able to do? And if you're able, then we've got step one that is really important and really necessary. Step two is just as important and necessary, but very different. Are you willing? Because strange as it seems, sometimes we're not always willing to do what it is that's going to make us change to the feelings we want. I know that sounds strange, but there are reasons why that happens. And then we explore that. But we pick the one that you feel like you're really able and willing to do. That's how it works. So I want to now invite anybody that might have something they'd like to talk about. What do people talk about? Holiday scenarios coming up. We got Hanukkah just starting very, very soon. And then we've got Christmas coming up pretty quick. We're behind it. And then we got New Year's and all kinds of celebrations around these times, all kinds of get-togethers. And sometimes, as much as we think of them as very pleasant experiences, they're also sometimes emotionally challenging for lots of reasons. So if you've got something coming up that's causing you some concern and you're worried a bit about it and you'd like to chat about it and want to feel better about it, you can call me about that. 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Also, if you want to talk about something, at the workplace, maybe you're toying with changing jobs. Maybe you're trying to decide who to promote. Maybe you're trying to get a decision made and you're having a tough time with some other internal people and you're thinking to yourself, I wonder if this roadmap might help me. You know what? Can't hurt to ask. Most of the time, I find that people that do call in feel like they got some help. So I encourage you to call in if you get something to do with the holidays, something to do with work, something to do at home. And I'll give you a minute to call in. Again, the number is 203-336-9756. And I'll wait. I don't like to wait too long, but I will encourage you, if you're thinking that you might want to call, at the end of the call, sometimes people decide, when I just listen to a couple of people, I wonder if I can get some help and get some time. And you run out of time because I'm on till 12:55. It's 12 to 1, but 5 minutes before 1 o'clock, there's some public announcements that come up. And so I've got 55 minutes, and this is a good time if you want to call. So I encourage you, if you've got something, I know it's hard sometimes to pick the phone up and call and talk to a stranger about this, but if you've been a regular listener, you know that I've been helping a lot of people. And if there's something going on in your life, I'd love to be able to help you. I feel good when I'm able to help you. That's my holiday gift to myself, is being able to do this show and come in and do it. By the way, this is my 15th year. I'm starting in December. I started in December 2000 and was it 9, I guess. So 2009, it's coming up in 2024. 2009 in December is when I started. And this is December and it's 2023. So we're just moving into our 15th year here. when one of the other programmers and volunteers at WPKN, Lou Pomalis, a friend of mine, he was in a class I was teaching on emotional intelligence and organizations at the University of Hartford at the time. I was a friend of mine had asked me if I wanted to take this job. He had been a faculty member who was leaving the organization, and I had trained him in emotional intelligence. He said, "Chuck, you'd be great at this, and if you want to just come in and teach this course for a few years, if you like this, I think that'd be great." So I said, "Oh, it sounds like fun, Len." And so I went in and I taught the course for a few years there. And I got to meet Lou Pomalis, and Lou was in my class, and I was teaching the students how to use the emotion roadmap in the workplace and also at home. And Lou said, "Chuck, this is great. I'd love for you to be a programmer on WPKN and allow other people to learn about the emotion roadmap as a call-in show." And I said, "That sounds interesting, Lou." He said, "Would you like to do it?" I said, "I'd love to do it." So it took him a little while. Bob Johnson was the programmer at the time, and Bob put me on the air. Lou got me on. Bob was willing to go along with it, and it was great. I thought maybe I'd do it for a year or two, or maybe 5 might be a lot. 10 was somewhat remarkable, and now I'm in my 15th year doing this. So again, I encourage you to call in 203-336-9756 if you got something you'd like to chat about. Okay. So that whenever sometimes I wish in some ways I was able to do this more often, because I think it'd be more of a regular thing. People would just be used to calling in and be kind of waiting to do that. But that doesn't happen. So sometimes it takes a while and somebody has to break the ice and then other people want to call. So again, I'll give you one more shot at it before I just start telling stories. 203-336-9756. Here we go. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Hi, Chuck. This is Herb from Killingworth.
Hi, Herb. How you doing?
Hey, pretty good. I had some financial problems this morning, and I'm just listening to you with that roadmap. Helped me out already, actually.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Just wanted to call. Appreciate the show, and thank you very much.
Well, thanks a lot. I don't know if I can't help you to change your investment strategy necessarily, but I may be able to help you deal with it emotionally.
Well, it was the cash thing. Yeah, thank you very much.
You bet. Thanks for the call. I really appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate knowing that something that I might have said is helpful to people. That's, sometimes you sit here in front of the microphone and I get a chance to do this for Simsbury Community Media. That also I filmed this, and this will be on the air in Simsbury, in the town that I live in. Some years ago, the director of the Simsbury Community Media, local television station, asked me if I'd broadcast the show for them. So she had heard me speak at a chamber meeting one time, and I said, I really don't know that I can do 2 shows. And she said, "Well, how about if we just videotaped the show that you do, and we air that on our community television station?" I said, "I can probably do that. That would be fine." And so if you look at Emotion Roadmap under Simsbury Community Media, you can see lots and lots and lots of my shows over the last, I think I'm the longest running television program I believe they have at this point. I think I've been there. Well, again, who knew I was going to be on for this many years? But so there's lots of previous shows that if you just can't get enough of me and you want to watch the show, you can watch the show there. Just go to their website, Simsbury Community Media, Emotion Roadmap, and you ought to get to me. If you can't find it, you can email me. I don't mind giving my email out. CJ Wolfe, my last name, WOLFE, CJWOLFE at CJWOLFE.com. If you just want to drop me a line, it's great to hear from listeners. Every once in a while, somebody writes a nice note. Also, if you want a link to that where you can see that, I can send you that. You can also hear my programs, a lot of them on SoundCloud. Don't do that regularly, but I have a lot of shows on SoundCloud. I also have it on the Public Radio Exchange, where I tend to put a lot of my favorite shows, and some on YouTube as well, on my own channel. So lots of places to hear. Just type in Emotion Roadmap and Chuck Wolfe, and you'll find lots of things about where you can listen to other shows if you like. Okay, again, 203-336-9756 If you've got something you'd like some help with and you want to give me a call, the number is 203-336-9756, and I'll give you another minute. Okay, let me tell you about something that I think is current for a lot of people. I don't know if you're in LinkedIn or not, but if you are in business and you're in LinkedIn, you're welcome to connect with me. Just mention the WPKN connection when you send me a note, so I'll be sure to link up with you. There's a number of people that I'm connected to via LinkedIn, and that just simply means when I post something that you have access to, it'll come up in your feed. So one of the things that I posted recently is a presentation that I did for a client I'm working with, actually, but it's universal information that I wanted to share with everybody, and you can just click on YouTube and listen to it if you like. It has to do with this whole concept of dealing with criticism. How do we criticize another person? How do we give feedback to another person? How do we talk about performance? And why I think it's important to talk a little bit about that right now is because typically in the fall, towards the wintertime, people begin thinking about year-end performance reviews. Some do it very formally, particularly in larger organizations, but often, even if it's not formal, there's an informal discussion about how you're doing. And most of us, it's kind of funny, I think all of us want to know how we're doing until somebody tells us. I mean, we're so sensitive sometimes to how it feels if somebody says, hey, I'd like to think you could do this better, or you need to do this differently, or this isn't working. As soon as we hear that, we have a normal defensive reaction. Again, our feelings are designed to protect us. I think you always have to keep that in mind, at least the way I think about feelings, is that whatever I'm feeling, even if it's not helpful, it isn't trying to harm me, although it might cause harm. Not on purpose, though. It's designed to be protective. So I always try as best I can to welcome the feelings I have, even if it's a depressed feeling, because I want to understand, why am I feeling depressed right now? Where is it coming from? What's causing it? Is it the right reaction? Feelings aren't wrong or right. They're pleasant or unpleasant. They're not wrong or right. It's really important to understand that too. They're sometimes very pleasant feeling, like joy, love, optimism. Sometimes is considered a very positive feeling. So when we're hopeful, positive, but a lot of times we feel distraught, upset. We watch the news. You can't help watch the news and not feel upset often with some of the things that are happening in our world. So one of the things that I want people to understand is when a feeling arises and you feel somebody's criticizing you, defending it is normal, but it's not necessarily helpful. So as the person being reviewed in upcoming reviews that are due anytime, sometimes the reviews happen around this time of year in December. Sometimes they go into the new year, January, February, even March sometimes. But somewhere between November and March, there's conversations taking place in most organizations about how each of you are doing, if you're working. Or maybe you own a business and you're the one who's giving the feedback out. So again, you can send me an email and I'll send you the link if you like. But I spent some time thinking about what goes into a performance review. How do you do it right? How do you give feedback well? It came out of a conversation I was having with an organization I'm doing some work with that had to do with the importance of accountability. Now, if you've ever been in an organization where the people who run the organization, the leaders of the organization, the owners of the business, are talking about accountability, let's start having conversations about accountability. What do you think people feel? How do you think people feel? In fact, it might be a fun phone call if you want to make a phone call and feel like talking. 203-336-9756. What has happened in your world of experience whenever the conversation starts to be about accountability? How do people feel when that comes up? What are some of the experiences you've had? I'll give you a minute in case anybody wants to talk about that with me, and then I'll tell you about some of the ways I think you can really handle this very positively. So if you've had any experience talking about accountability and you have some thoughts and some feelings about it, give me a call. 203-336-9756. Now, by the way, all of you, everybody listening, has had feelings about accountability. You all have. We all have. Most of them aren't of the pleasant variety of feelings. But some are. And why would some people be very positive about when they hear we're going to talk about accountability, and others feel very unpleasant? So if you want to talk about this with me, 203-336-9756. I'll give it a minute and then I'll continue on my journey of storytelling. Okay, let me keep going. We got something great. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Yes, my name is Michelle.
Hi, Michelle. How you doing?
Hi, I'm well, thank you.
Good.
I wanted to call and reiterate what the other gentleman said who called, in that you helped me. I called you, it was probably about 6 months ago, and I was speaking to you about my daughter and her boyfriend, and how since she started dating this man, our relationship has changed somewhat, and how that has affected me. And you said some things to me, and one of them that was very helpful was that you had noticed in the last several years how people coming into a family weren't trying to curry favor with the family. It was the family trying to curry favor.
Right. I remember the call, Michelle. I actually do.
Yeah. And that in and of itself, it helped. But nothing has really much changed, except that the way I feel about it has changed over time. I feel like it started that day, but over the last 6 months, it doesn't have the control over me that it did. He doesn't have the control over me that he did. I just have been able to rethink it, I don't know, logically, and then my heart has changed too, which has been a really big help, because it was bothering me and I had a heavy heart about it.
Boy, that's awesome to hear, Michelle. Thank you so much for calling in and sharing that. Sometimes when we have conversations, when I have conversations with other people, you like to think that the person, that what we talk about is going to be helpful, but I don't always know, and I don't often hear back. But it's great to hear that you. What I think, the way I think about this is that you can't control him. We can try and think about ways to influence that, but what you can control is the way you react to that and the narrative you have around what the feelings are that started. And it sounds like not only did you change the narrative, but you're able to change the feelings, and that's great.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you. And the next time I have a situation that I'm struggling with, I will be sure to give you a call again. I appreciate your program, and I try to tune in whenever I'm able to. No, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You have a wonderful holiday season and a happy new year. Thanks for sharing and calling. Take care, Michelle. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that, again, I get great joy out of hearing that something that I might have said or helped, that I was able to be helpful to people. So I'm glad about that. Let's see if I can continue down this road about on this idea of what happens when somebody's trying to give us some feedback that we don't necessarily want to hear. One of the ways that I like to think about when you're on the receiving end that you might think about that is to think about it as a gift. It takes some courage to tell somebody something that you don't like about what they're doing. Now, some people do it without being thoughtful and don't have any feelings about it, and I don't think that takes courage. But if you really do care about the person, and you're trying to do this in a sensitive way, but you think it's something that they'll benefit from hearing, it takes some courage when somebody's that you in your sphere of influence, somebody that is someone you deal with on somewhat of a regular basis, says something to you that is meaningful and important to hear, and you don't really want to hear it, and yet there's a piece of you that knows it's really important to hear. So let me tell you what I think is at the heart of this that makes it better and more pleasant than unpleasant. It's tone, it's attitude, it's the way you go about it. If I'm getting feedback from someone and I feel like this person is doing everything they can to be supportive of me, if I think I'm doing everything I can to be supportive of me, I can more easily accept what they're saying, even when it's not necessarily something I really want to hear, but that I recognize I'm better for hearing it and dealing with it than ignoring it. And I appreciate this as a gift. What doesn't work, or what feels like very offensive and causes people to be defensive, is when it feels judgmental. When I'm judging you and I want you to know, I think that you don't do whatever well, you do this really poorly, I can't believe that you did this. You just undermine somebody's self-confidence, and the way you do it feels tactless and uncaring and judgmental. So when you think, and when you're on the receiving end and you recognize that somebody is doing the very best they can to be supportive, be more open. Allow yourself to lower your defenses. I'm a big Star Trek fan, and I've watched all the different series over the years. And, incoming missiles, incoming, shields up. That's how we react. I think the metaphor works. We feel like incoming missiles are coming our way when somebody's got something judgmental to say about us, and it's harshly critical and not done well. But when somebody comes in and says, Chuck, I really care about you, and I heard your show today, and I thought you were great, and blah, 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 blah. But also there was something that you said that, I don't know. Can I just share with you something? And by the way, asking if it's okay to share something that's going to be critical, but supportive and not judgmental, just trying to be helpful. And I say, sure, that's okay. What did you have? And I listen and I think about it, and I said, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I'll give that some thought. I appreciate you coming to me and sharing that with me. And you think of it as a gift, and it took some courage, and they did it so nicely. So I think when you do give feedback, informal or formal, that it's really important that you do it that way. I hope that helps everybody out there to think about that, because we all, it isn't just at work, by the way. We have feedback for each other at home, whether it's parent to child, whether it's child to child, sibling to sibling, spouse to spouse, partner to partner, neighbor to neighbor, people that you're in a group with, somebody in your community, somebody at your religious organization, your sports club, your band, whatever. We all have places where, we've got some thoughts about each other and our behaviors and things that we'd like to see different. Can we say and speak about them in ways that are designed to be supportive and not judgmental? And again, of course, it's judgmental. I mean, it is. You are judging something. You may not even be right, by the way. That's the other thing. And when I think about how people give feedback to one another, if as a boss or a leader, a manager, whatever title you might have, and you have people that you work with, and you have some things that you're looking at, year-end review, you've thought about it, you've done some homework, you documented things, you chatted about things that shouldn't be surprises when you bring them back up as a year-end review, if you've got that kind of process in place. As you're looking at all that and you're thinking about, how do I deliver this news? How do I do it in a way that's constructive? One of the things that you want to really think about is, I have some things I'd like to see this person do different. But I don't know everything about their job in the way that they know their job, because they're doing it every day and I'm just kind of overseeing it. So I want to be open when I bring up this conversation about maybe how they handled a particular decision, how they dealt with another person in a certain setting. There's some things that I saw that I wanted to chat about that I didn't think went as well as they could have. But maybe I haven't heard the whole story. And so if I go into this like with a hard line that I don't care what they say, I'm going to tell them I didn't like this, I want to see it different. That doesn't feel supportive at all. But if I go and I say, look, I'd like to know from your perspective, on certain things about how you thought the year went, and then tell me about this interaction or this decision or this whatever's happening that you want to address, and you describe it. What happened from your perspective? Yeah, ask that question. And then you know what's funny about that? As if that person that you're talking to has something that they say to you that changes the way you felt about what you were thinking coming in. It's just possible that somebody might have some information or perspective that you didn't consider that turns it all around for you. And you don't feel the need to be asking them to change something because they actually did it right now that you have this perspective and you understand their thinking and what was going on for them that day. Now, it doesn't always happen like that, but if it's possible for that to happen, that person sees that, they're much more accepting when you say, okay, I heard you. And by the way, I think just saying I heard you isn't enough in this circumstance. You want to say, I heard you, and let me make sure I understand what you're telling me and why you did what you did and what your perspective is. Let me make sure I got it. And then to your best ability, you repeat back to them what's heard. Now, maybe you didn't get it quite right, and they say, no, okay, now do you feel heard? I do. Okay. Well, I understand your point of view, but I don't accept it. Let me tell you why I think should something similar arise, I want to see you do it differently. This is how I'd like to see you do it, and this is why I'd like to see you do it differently. Now, I think as the person on the receiving end of that, having felt heard and listened to, and knowing that you were willing to change if I was able to influence you to change, but you didn't, I'm much more accepting typically of what you want to say than I would have been otherwise. I mean, I'll probably do it anyway because I work for you and I want to keep working for you, hopefully. So, chances are they do it, but they might be very unhappy about it. But if you do it in this way, with this context, if you will, I think things change. Things are better. So I hope that's helpful. But what I was going to say was if you go on YouTube and you look me up under Chuck Wolf Emotion Roadmap, one of the latest things I did was this thing on accountability. And as I started to tell you, lots of organizations, when you bring up this idea of accountability, people get scared. They get upset. They wonder, am I not doing something I'm supposed to do? Or am I not doing the things that I'm supposed to do in the way that the organization wants them done? Or my boss wants them done? And people start looking internally and worrying. That's one reaction. Some people are angry. Why are we talking about accountability? We've got so much to do. All of a sudden, we're going to have this deep discussion about accountability. Why weren't they talking about that all year? Why now? I mean, there's all kinds of things that people kind of have knee-jerk reactions to, if you will, kind of reflexes to this word accountability. And they're not positive mostly. Now, there will be a few people who absolutely think, thank goodness, it's finally time. Everybody here needs to be far more accountable. We need people to be more accountable. What does that look like? What does that look like? Well, it looks like when you are in a position in a workplace where you depend on other people to get you things onto your desk or into your situation, wherever you're on a line somewhere or you're somewhere in an office, whatever your particular circumstance is, you depend on others to get certain things to you on a given time in a certain way. When people are accountable, they're there. Normally, you have everything you need to do your job effectively every day, all the time. That's what it feels like when there's an organization that's highly accountable. Everybody has what they need. Everybody has what they need on time, and everybody has it in the quality that they desire. And life is good. You work for an organization where a lot of people feel inspired. Now, of course, there's more things than just having things done right. But accountability is a big part of the equation about what makes organizational life a success. Don't you feel good being part of a team where everybody knows their role? I remember watching when I coached I have three daughters, and I coached them all in soccer when they were very young. And one of the things that's funny to watch if you ever have the chance to watch kids in a soccer field who are 5 years old and just first learning, everybody chases the ball. It's just kind of what they do. It's kind of like watching bees in a hive move all in unison. But as you learn how to play the game, you learn how to play your position so that elite teams, I'm going to pass from a halfback position to a forward position, not to where the forward is right at this moment, but to where the forward's going to be, because I know they're going to be there, to that empty spot in the field towards the corner. And then that's the right forward, say, and then the center forward, when the right forward gets it, is going to be sort of mid-goal in order to either kick or head that ball in when the corner kick comes across. And everybody knows where to go on an elite team. And everybody goes there. And everybody depends on that. That's being accountable. That's being inspired. That's being dynamic and really, really effective. But it doesn't start like that. So a lot of this is about leadership and instruction and fundamentals and discipline. And there's a lot of things that go into that, just like in any kind of organizational life, that lead to that elite performance. So when we talk about accountability, I'm working with this organization where somebody was saying we need more accountability. And I thought, well, yeah, we're trying to build a set of shared feelings. And accountability is one of those scary ones. And I thought, well, wait a minute. Accountability builds trust. If everybody's accountable, we can all trust each other to get stuff done on time, to the, in the right way and to the right places. Life's better. It's actually better. But how do we get there? Well, some people don't necessarily like to talk about accountability and don't like being accountable even. So maybe they're not doing the things that they should be doing for the organization. And maybe you want to rethink where you put them, because if we can put people where they're really strong, where they really have some excellent strengths, and they enjoy doing the things that we put them in today, different than yesterday where they were doing some things that they liked and lots of things they may not be good at or enjoy doing. Can we reconfigure things so that people can be accountable and be really happy being accountable, doing things that they really enjoy? Well, that's one way of thinking about this. Another thing was like, what do we really mean by accountability? And I started to do some research, and I started looking at a number of places, and Harvard Business Review is a really good, for me anyway, a good tool to start researching something like this. And so in my video that I produced, I said, look, there's several things that I've learned about accountability. It starts with really clear expectations. So even at the beginning of the year, when you're first starting out, are you sitting down with everybody that works with you, and are you being extremely clear about what's expected? Chances are no. I mean, I guess that for most people, they have a conversation and they walk away thinking that they understand each other. And often they're close enough. But a lot of times things get messed up because it's not so clear. So how can we be really clear? And then once we are clear, because it starts, the step one is getting as clear as you can with whoever it is that works for you and with the person you work for about what you're going to do for them and what are they expecting from you. The next thing you want to ask is, do you have everything you need? Do you have everything you need? Do you have everything you need in the way of resources? Do you have the staff that you need to get this done? Do you have the budget that you need? Do you have the tools, the software you need? Do you have all the skills that you need? If anything's missing, we need to address that, or you're not going to be successful. So let's make sure you have what you need. So first, what do we expect from each other? And do we each have what we need in those different categories? And then, how are we going to measure things? And by the way, I think the measures that you talk about, I mean, obviously there's things that you can measure by counting them, but most things don't fall into simple quantitative measures like that. They're much more subjective. So when we talk about measures, I think whatever it is we're going to measure, let's talk about how we're going to measure it. Let's check in a month, month and a half, a few weeks, if it makes sense, and just see how it's working. Are the measures really the measures we want? Or let's modify it so it's more realistic about what we're measuring. Let's just keep checking on what we're measuring. And then, how are we going to give each other feedback? How do we make sure that our feedback to each other, because I think feedback to the leader is really critical too. I think the leader needs to be open to being, a lot of times leaders, especially with people that are really, really good, give them too much. I mean, it's a normal behavior. If I get something really important that my boss just gave to me, I'm going to give it to the person that's best on my team. Because if my leader says it's important to him or her, and I think that's really important to him or her, it must be really important to me. I got to give it to somebody I really trust to do a great job. But how many of those same things can you get to that same person? So sometimes people got to push back and be able to say to their leaders, hey, I appreciate that you think I'm capable of doing all these things, but honestly, there's only so much time, and you got to tell me which one of these things is most important to you, because I can't do them all. And you got to find perhaps somebody else to help with some of these other things that aren't the top things that you're asking me to do. So I think all of this says that let's really be sensitive to how each other feels. And it makes an enormous difference about how we perform. So if we want people to be accountable, and we really do. And by the way, I think it's really interesting. A lot of times I've been in organizations where somebody has come and I've heard them say, either as when I've been a consultant or been internally as a charge leadership development or in my own groups, somebody comes up and says, hey, look, I'm capable of doing a lot more. And I think about it and I say, yeah, you probably are. And I'd like to do more. And I'd like you to consider me for a promotion or at least a new project. And I'd say, I think that you probably are more capable, but you know what? There's things that you haven't done that I've given to you, and they aren't done yet. So until you're accountable for the things that you have on your plate, really, I'm not going to give you anything else. So, I don't mind you coming and asking, but I'm going to tell you each time, if there's things I think you haven't finished or haven't done well, I'm not going to give you any more. Why would I? You prove to me that you're going to do all the stuff that I'm asking you to do, and you do it well. Of course, I want to give you more. I just can't trust that's going to be the right thing to do right now until you show me that you're accountable. You see, accountable leads to promotions, leads to new opportunities. But again, it feels like it's an uncomfortable word. And yet, I think if we are really clear what we're looking for, accountable is a great word. It's just the way we deal with it. And that has to do with how we deal with our emotions and our feelings. I hope you find that really useful for what's coming up when you have conversations with people. The last thing, by the way, is in terms of how we're going to give each other feedback is, again, I feel like the importance of being supportive and not judgmental, being open to when you're giving somebody some critical feedback that you think they should do something differently, first hearing their perspective about why they did it the way they did, and being willing to change what you think and feel about that if it makes sense to do so. That's really important too. So anyway, I wanted to talk about that because a lot of people are in that moment in time where they're going to be dealing with feelings about performance. And this is hopefully a really good way and a good strategy to help you get there and do it better than you might have done in the past. So I want to thank Ken and Michelle, because it's so great to get calls about people that I am actually helping people. That feels good. I also want to address one other thing I think that's really important. I hope that when you do get together with relatives over the holidays, and I'll say more about this next week when I'm back on the air, but you really want to be thoughtful about political divides these days, or just differences of opinion in a variety of ways, because there's a lot of tension going on in this world right now with polarization. I'd encourage all of you, if you are certain about certain issues that you want to defend and talk about, that you're really thoughtful and you go more than just with the talking points that you might happen to hear on your favorite news station, radio station, newspapers, articles from different magazines. We all have our favorites. I get it. And sometimes they drive us to believe and feel a certain way. And certainly with social media, you press I like this, and you're inundated with all kinds of information to support that position. But I've heard things that are, I've heard like, the killing of all one group of people, and then other groups of people. And I just think, boy, it's so important to back away from that kind of talk. It's so important because when you say you want to get rid of a whole group of people, I think you're talking like a racist, right? You're talking about like, I don't want to see any of those people, whatever group. I want to see all those people wiped out, whatever group. And as soon as you put a group's name to it, it's just wrong. So there's a lot of things that different people do that are wrong. Whole groups do things wrong. I don't know. I mean, that's a bit of a stretch for me to accept. I don't believe that. But I think individuals do bad things on occasion. Some of us have done bad things on occasion. So what I encourage everybody is be really thoughtful. Be really supportive of everybody's point of view to the point that you at least listen to other points of view. We talk a lot about diversity and how important it is to be acceptant and tolerant and inclusive. I think diversity of thought is really critical too. I really encourage you, when you're at the dinner table and somebody happens to like a certain candidate for office that you don't like, listen to them. You don't have to believe what they believe to be respectful and to listen. And if it's somebody you love and it's a family member, remember that you love them. Hold that at the heart of whatever else you're feeling. And then, okay, I heard you. It doesn't change how I think or what I believe. And that's not what what you said doesn't make sense to me, but seems to make sense to you. Okay. You want to hear what I think and what I believe? I'm happy to share that if you like. But don't be driven to try to convince everybody to come around to your point of view. Try to let go of that if you can. I think the most important thing we can do over the holiday season is be kind, be generous, be thoughtful, and pay attention to how other people feel, especially those that you love, but also those that you work with, because you got to come back to work with them. So I'm going to be signing off. So you've been listening to Chuck Wolf, and this is the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. Again, I'm on the first and second Wednesdays of each month. You can listen on WPKN.org. SoundCloud has some of my programs. Public Radio Exchange, YouTube. You can hear all kinds of places. Find the Emotion Roadmap if you want to listen to more. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back with you next week. You have a wonderful week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.